This chapter had a little bit of everything. I'm excited to talk about this one, so stick around and hear me out. First though, let me do some quick channel maintenance. It won't take long at all. A new chapter of One Piece is going to take priority on this channel, so this week and all future weeks of One Piece, I aim to read the chapter, write the script, film and edit the video and upload it all as soon as possible. Beyond that, the rest of my content will be batch content, where I write as much as I can in one day, and then film and edit and upload based on that. And then if I still need to spend some more hours on the channel that week, I'll look to larger scale projects. It might be presumptuous to work on big videos without an audience, but I'm here making the content I want to make on this channel. Alright, so with that out of the way, this chapter was really honing in on that classic early One Piece arc chapter feel. I mean, we got the Straw Hats interacting with people, establishing new character gimmicks, appropriate lore drops, and plot development that gets us primed for the direction of this arc. This is one of those chapters that in a binge would probably have me thinking, oh, I'll just read one more chapter. I know sometimes depending on mood any chapter could be that, but this chapter is non-negotiably like that, trust me. So let's go into what happens, what I thought, all that good stuff. Yamato's cover story continues, and it seems like Who's Who has a base. Still waiting for this cover story to really hook me. It seemed like it would be a grand adventure in Wano, and it ended up being one of the more slice-of-life cover stories. Anyway, let's get into the chapter proper. The chapter is titled The Land That Awaits the Sun, and I suppose that makes enough sense for the title given the lore portion of this chapter. So the chapter begins with Luffy enjoying some moose meat that apparently tastes like dinosaur. This makes me wonder if Luffy has enjoyed dinosaur meat at any other point besides Little Garden, because off the top of my head I do not think so, and if he can remember the taste of dinosaur meat from the one time he ate it, that is just a nice little chef's kiss of character writing right there. So Jarl talks about moose being fierce, and humans who flee because they end up in the underworld rather than the sun world, and though you'd probably expect this conversation to continue, we sort of hard cut to Usopp telling a lie about how he defeated Oars. But this is not just any lie, this is the recurring gag of Usopp taking credit for Luffy's actions. He's done this before, off the top of my head, him taking credit for Luffy's Conqueror's Haki in Fishman Island during the Dressrosa arc. And while I'm not sure if this moment will end up as memorable as that one to me, I felt it needed to be addressed. I like these character moments, they always make a chapter more enjoyable. But this chapter doesn't let up, because immediately we get a scene where Jinbei interacts with giants who haven't seen many fishmen, and he shows them grace and understanding, making a statement to illustrate the appeal of his people, and I really appreciate this moment too. And yes, we do follow it up with Sanji being Sanji. I've always been neutral on this, I understand his feelings, it would be out of character not to get this from time to time, but on a personal level, I don't read One Piece to get a dissertation on the beauty of women according to the standards of a perverted cook. I don't want him to ever change, but I don't want to listen to him make the same points over and over. Anyway, it's nice to see that when we follow that up with Brook, we get a question of his status as a living skeleton, and he sings about having the What Am I blues, which is great. Wish that was more of a song, but I understand we've got a lot to get through, so things move right along. Nami shows her preconceptions about giants, which is an interesting little line to throw in there, but I can't stay on every line, so let's talk about Rodo the Weirdo for a moment. This new development for his character being a masochist is both unexpected and not surprising, in that I didn't see it coming, but it makes complete sense. Zoro unleashes his inner menace on Rodo, which scares him and causes teasing from the other giants. Gerd is supportive of Zoro's stance, and suddenly Rodo tries to defend some of his actions by talking about the Sun God. This prompts a transition from the fun party vibes to the lore-heavy section of this chapter. All the giants start to argue about the Sun God Nika, and Jarl tells us about the Harley, an ancient text that can no longer be translated. It's not mentioned in this chapter, but I have every suspicion that if it's written in the same language as the poneglyphs, and this text can be found in the Owl Library, that one very likely event is that Robin will read it at some point in this arc. Anyway, we have an explanation about Nika here, how his role in history is disputed, but he is always at the forefront of great change in the world, and that those with power fear him. And as far as Luffy is concerned, Nika is just the guy Bonnie was talking about. This is where Jarl says that those without hope seek the sun god most, and describes Nika in a plain, indisputable way that makes it click for Luffy why everyone compares him to Nika. Still, Luffy is as dismissive and individualist as ever, thinking it has nothing to do with him. Still, this doesn't deter the giants from admiring him, as we get to see Haruden with his arms around his crewmates Stanson and Goldberg as they talk about how great Sun God Nika is, with an extra jab at Rodo thrown in for good measure. So Jarl continues to explain things from his perspective, musing on King Harold and Prince Loki, and how they both likely idolize Nika too. The mention of Loki prompts Luffy to ask the giants for opinions, a surprisingly smart and mature thing to do of him. So the giants talk of Loki's status as the problem child, everything that they blame him for and dislike about him, painting a picture that he is a bad guy, but in a way that kind of oversells it. It feels like we could be potentially setting up a misunderstood character here. Jarl explains more of the circumstances in which Loki killed Harold, including the revelation that the sword in his head was put there by Loki. And while everyone is so concerned, he says it's fine. So I believe him. I mean, he's still alive and speaking in coherent sentences, so that's what matters, right? We then get confirmation that Shanks caught Loki, something which I believe was implied from earlier conversations between Loki and Luffy, but not something directly stated. Luffy and Zoro sneak off to the outskirts of town, as Zoro suspects Luffy knows something that he's trying to keep secret. And even though we don't get the full conversation, we catch the most important parts toward the end, the consideration of the possibilities and of future action. So on the next page we get Nami immediately aware of Luffy and Zoro's plans, willing to go along with them so they don't get lost. So the three of them are headed to the castle to see if they can get the keys to Loki's cuffs, but they won't free him until they are able to get a proper impression of him. We also get the reveal that Rodo has willingly agreed to be Nami's servant, and Zeus reminds him of the pecking order. The fact that Nami is collecting servants now is both hilarious and kinda disturbing. I mean, if it's consensual, I guess it's okay, but man, these pervs really do be simping. Still, I think Nami's flat rejection, never try to close the distance between us again, is hilarious. Anyway, we soon learn that Nami's true motivation is to steal treasure from the castle, so once again, yet another classic Straw Hat character trait is present. I told you, this chapter really feels like it has everything I want in a chapter, and it's not even over yet. The chapter continues as we cut to the Gods Knights speaking with Loki, quite likely meaning that they are in possession of the keys to his cuffs. This means Luffy and co will likely have to deal with the aftermath of whatever these two did at the castle. Loki refuses the offer of the knights, and we are told that informants last transmitted that they saw a giant crow, potentially meaning that some of the humans that Rodo kidnapped were spies for the world nobles. But let's not complicate how we view his actions, they were still messed up. The girl with bandage powers thinks that Loki is insolent, is more clearly seen to have heterochromia eyes, and gets a box introducing her as Gunko. A giant wolf appears, and while Loki believes this is an easy win for his ally, the young Holy Knight woman is offended and swiftly wraps bandages around the wolf's neck. Loki is given another offer, but once again rejects it, instead declaring something insane. This is where the chapter ends, and let me tell you, I am here for this One Piece. Yes, not every chapter can be like this, but I enjoyed every page and I want to read more. So I went a lot more in depth on this chapter than I was expecting to, because there was so much that I wanted to say. If people react positively to this, then I might try to make more videos like this, to go more in depth with chapters even when they aren't as exciting. But if there is no noticeable difference between this review and others, then I might simply just stick to expressing myself however I want to. I'm in the experimentation phase of my channel, trying to figure out what people are interested in seeing, trying to improve the quality of my content in whatever way I can, but at the end of the day, it's mostly so I can look at my work and be proud of it. If you couldn't already tell by how much I had to say about it, I really enjoyed this chapter. These kinds of chapters are among the best kinds of One Piece chapters, and yes, it's only the second chapter of the year, but I do really feel that I enjoyed it more than last chapter. Like, if I were reading this in a binge, last chapter would be made better by knowing that this is the next chapter, and this is the chapter that would make me want to keep reading. Thank you for watching. Let me know what you thought of the chapter in the comments, and if you've made it to this point in the video, let me know the source of these song lyrics. History shows again and again how nature points out the folly of man.